Welcome. Let's continue with the sets list. I'm basically using list items to keep building this form. And as you can see, it's a pretty parametric model. It starts with what I did in the last one, playing with some curves and NURBS curves and lofting them and uh, building the geometries of the wheels that are fully parametric to a Bezier curve, which directs the shape of these spokes. And I ended up with breps of the wheels. What I did was I then went and took the breps of the wheels and threw them in to evaluate them and do an extrusion off of what was planar, which happened to be this very cool shape that could be extruded into this area here. Um, if I could hold it still, I'll just basically it does a nice extrusion here, and then I mirrored it and I oriented that, I believe, onto a rectangle of points in the corners, which wasn't too hard. Could have brought it farther in. I do have a double item here, which I'm not sure why I have that. Let me go back. Um, Obviously, it's necessary. This one goes nowhere. This is the one that actually was in use. Didn't do a solid union afterwards. It's interesting. Maybe that's a bit of the data that I have two breps as opposed to unioning them. Anyway, I'll have to look into that one. That builds a very interesting shape here. And then what I did was I went and found, I took apart that piece again and called out that which was planar again and was left with these little curves that I was able to find the sphere in the center and set my two spheres on this end and on this end. And then from those points, I was able to loft and do a little bit of maneuvering and do a holistic cross-reference to build this interesting frame, which goes into a nice pipe. And you're done. It wasn't too hard. And then I threw them all into these different colors. It's a nice little script. I will be putting it up on GitHub. I find this way interesting. I'm going to build a kind of vessel-like form, uh, like a basketry on top, which would be the next stage of this. But basically, just keep running your scripts. And so if you change anything in your scripts, so if I went in here to the solver, and I'm not sure what's going to happen here, to the solver off, I'm going to bring it down to about half. And I'm sure that's just going to transform the shape of it as I put the solver back on. Take a few seconds to load, and we ran out of something. So yeah, I obviously pushed it away from what it could actually handle. Put the solver back on and let's put it up this way and see if the solver works. So I'm just kind of working parametrically to see if I can still hold some geometries. And there it is, it's back again with little subtle changes to it. Hard to see exactly what happened in the multiplication. That was one that was playing with the range. Always make sure you take your solver off. Obviously the count here is not going to be a major issue. If I wanted 3 count, I could put that back on. That's going to change the spokes. Give it about 3 seconds to load. And there you go. You got a different, but that does affect the geometries here and has effect a little bit on how this reads. So I'm probably going to have to keep to, I'm just guessing, I'll put it back up to 4 since it was working at 5 or 6. Let's see, it works well on that. It might be working on even or odd numbers. So we'll just have to keep playing with that. And at any time you want to go in and the Bezier curve is kind of interesting to play with because that changes the shape of this, but it also alters how the spokes read because that cuts the shape in here differently. And so the radii of these pipes change accordingly. So everything does have an effect on one another. And I just keep writing these other script sections as I go. Obviously, that's a moving in the y or x axis. So if I brought that down to maybe that would separate the pipes and make for a different thing. But basically, you play with a little bit, yeah, and that pushes that down through these spheres, which I probably don't want because that would lock the wheels. But you can see a kind of change in that as well. And I just I continue to do this as I go. A multiplication, take off the solver. Let's put it to a 3. You can put it to rational numbers, but that's how you kind of play with it and do some alteration on it. Domains, ranges, anything that's got a little bit of a curve to it. A culling pattern is kind of interesting because that's how I went in and actually figured out what objects I wanted to mirror instead of making them all and worrying about reversed planes and having to flip planes and all that. I thought it would be best just mirrored in the end. But I do like this is planar to locate some cool tools. I was actually using the is planar so I could call out patterns so I could fill at edges, and I may go in and do that afterwards. But I'm not too, I'm not disliking this too much. I should probably hold that one back. And then I have a lot of points on curve in the middle. And that's maybe an inefficient way to work, but I do like to keep my data understandable in the end. Like here in the end, I released 16 pieces of pipe, which are all, they can be changed the radii. If I went in here and put the radii down a little bit, actually it's set at 1, so let's just let's take a solvering and let's go in 1.00 and let's bring that down as a radius, and you'll see how the pipes act a little different. There they go, and we've got double pipes in there, so we could even take that lower. It's going to slow the script down as I go, but you see what's happening. This really wired little pipe that's happening. So anyway, I think in line and point, and I'm playful with these scripts. Not sure where it's going to go. I'll keep putting these scripts up online, and I'll keep generating more and more objects. Thanks for watching.